What is going on, my good people? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I'm joined by Mr. Mondane Designs in the building. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here, man. Let's get to talking about a game that has definitely touched your heart and lives in your memory forever, and one that I discovered because of you.
Yeah. And that is Sleeping Dogs. And as we were sitting here in like the little pre-recording section, we're rambling on and on and on about all our favorite things. I was like, hold up. Let's we're wasting all the good stuff. We got to get the good stuff to the people.
We
It's
can't cheat them. We can't cheat them out of this stuff.
Man, I'm really, really excited. For one, I'm just so excited that you enjoyed the game as much as you did because when I played it, now it seems that people have kind of come around on Sleeping Dogs and are talking about it as like, okay, yeah, this is really, really, pun intended, slept on. And it is, man. When I played it, I think in 2020, I found it to be just mind blowing. I was like, this is on par with the best open world crime sandbox games on the market, and nobody is talking about it as such. And to me, I think that's why, in my opinion, it is like the most underrated game I've ever played. Not because people know about Sleeping Dogs, but I don't think people talk about it with the same. I don't think people put it up in that upper echelon of Grand Theft Auto level titles, and I really do think it's about as good as any Grand Theft Auto ever. I know it's sacrilegious, but I really do believe that.
Okay, so you know how I feel about Cyberpunk and how that has helped me in more ways than a video game should. Uh, I used to have like this really bad fear of like funerals and stuff to the point of it being a phobia and a fear of death and all that other stuff. And Cyberpunk kind of helped me get over that. Sleeping Dogs is essentially to me the sixth generation version of Cyberpunk. Like it was developed with the PS3 and the Xbox 360 in mind. It's it's sixth generation hardware, sixth generation development cycle and stuff. And while it does have its flaws, like the guns don't look that great. um, it's there's something there. There's something there if you're willing to invest the time to actually like look at it.
Yeah.
And like I'm not so sure I could have even appreciated the game as much as I do now if I had not played Cyberpunk first.
Huh. That's an interesting comparison. I think that for one, just how drastically different they are in terms of the perspective with first and third person, and I I think the coolest thing that both games, Cyberpunk and Sleeping Dogs, do really really well is the street world building, like
Yeah,
the world building on the street and how the environment kind of tells its own story. I think both games do that really really well, and but yeah, I'm pumped to be here with you and talking about this thing. I'm pumped that you enjoyed it as much as I did. So I guess we can start there just as like a quick thoughts, kind of what makes the game special. What do you think makes Sleeping Dogs so special to you personally?
uh, well, to your point, I think it is a living world, and it does feel like a living world to the point where if you just didn't do anything, that things would still continue to happen, and that hardly anything is just waiting for you to come along to trigger the event. I mean, like that's something you run into Halos and stuff like that, where you show up on a map and like the enemies don't even spawn until you show up.
Yeah.
This world does not feel like that. It feels like it's living and breathing and that everything's happening and stuff. There's tons of things to do. There's lots of ways to interact with the world. There's different leveling systems. Now it does like heavily concentrate on melee more than it does any kind of range combat in my mind,
Yeah.
because just collecting the statues and learning the new moves, that's way beyond anything else that was in that generation.
So you dude, you're so spot on. That system for going out and finding those statues and then taking it back to the dojo, and then it evolves from a Arkham inspired counter-based combat system to like a fighting game. Okay, hold X, light tap X, and now you got your strong knee into a kick up. Tap X 4 times and then hold the fifth, you got a swinging roundhouse kick. It's like
Yep.
it becomes a fighting game. And I think that, and we'll break this down bit by bit, talking about the gameplay and all that. But I think that right there is the biggest thing that separates Sleeping Dogs from anything else on the market. Where, okay, cool, in a lot of other games, you upgrade your stats a little bit. Now I'm a little bit better at shooting. Now I'm a little bit better at melee combat. But it's progression systems that reward you by incremental upgrades, and it's not changing the actual fundamental flow of the game. Sleeping Dogs changes the fundamental flow of the game because you are actually acquiring new moves and new ways to just engage in fistfights. It's
Uh,
it's wild.
no, here's the other thing was like, so my favorite move was grab a hold of you, hit square one, or yeah, hit square once, and then hold down square to do the leg breaker.
Yep.
You know exactly what I was going to say, uh, because it intimidates all of the other people around you. They
Yeah.
back off and everything. I haven't seen that again, really, until Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, with the quick draw.
Well, not just the quick draw, but like when you start beating everyone down and just murdering everyone with very good proficiency,
Mhm.
some of the other people get scared. They just run.
Yeah.
Like they'll just leave. They're like, oh no, I'm out. It's over. I'm done. Like I've watched you kill 3 people within 2 seconds. I'm done. I'm out. I'm leaving. But like with that, you like do that massive crack to someone's leg, and everyone is just like, oh, because like it's this it's meant to be this intimidating, devastating move, and the fact that like the NPCs, the enemies care about that and react to something like that, and they get, they show a little bit of fear. They're not just mindless zombies trying to attack you all the time. That's just another level of depth and immersion into that system.
Yeah, and I think that you touch on the leg break one. It's so crazy that it evolves from there too, where the next one, and it's such a seamless evolution of the combat because yeah, you have it's the hold tap X hold X. I think I can't remember the exact button combination for the leg break, but then the next one is like tap X twice and then hold it, and then that's the arm break maneuver. So it's
Yeah.
like everything, even though the combat is very intricate, you do learn these systems pretty quickly and get into the flow of combat pretty easily. It's not like it's
There's
not
not a
this
high layer was high level of shoot,
dif-
I'm blanking on the word.
difficulty.
Yeah, well, like learning curve. It's not a high
Right.
learning curve, right? It's like it slowly stair steps you up, where it's like, okay, you've learned this and you do this, and I mean they don't even grant you the move until you've done it like 3 or 4 times in the practice.
That's such a good point that you have to go in and you want to do that move over and over and over and over in the tutorial in the dojo before they even let you out onto the street where you can use the move. So it's like once again you talked about this earlier of the cultural references and just how they kind of honor a lot of Chinese culture. And I think that the honor system of the dojo of like, yeah, you're going to go in here and practice these things until you get it right, until we can trust you out on the street with those moves. And I know that,
Yeah,
that's kind of silly and you are using it to your advantage in a negative sense at certain times, but it is a cool little, it's just cool in terms of the progression system in the gameplay.
yeah. I mean, like that is like I mean I realize that on the surface that is a collectathon, and
Exactly.
there's some people that don't like it, but the game is so rewarding for you. Is so rewarding to the player for doing that collectathon.
Yeah. And it even extends beyond that with the health shrines, where you go and you like bow to the health shrines
Yeah,
and like I'm not because I'm that way. What you just talked about, where I get kind of annoyed by collectathons typically. I don't really want to do that. I want to get to the main story and go, but I think that they do such a good job of everything mattering. You go and get the health shrines and then you upgrade it's essentially like a health boost on top of your traditional health. Think of it something like an armor system.
Yeah.
You have your red health meter, and then a blue one comes on top of it, and it gives you more health before you get to like when you whittle down that red health, you end up dying. So you wanna have that blue health in place. So everything kind of matters, and that's the same thing with the statues. Like it's not just upgrades for the sake of upgrades. It actually matters throughout the course of the game, and the different little lock boxes out in the world. You go and you grab the lock box, you get 5 grand, 10 grand, 50 grand, whatever the case may be. And you go into the different shops, you get your different vehicles, everything that you're going and collecting. It actually feels like it matters. And it's not just some trivial activity, some throwaway activity.
Yeah, and like there are some of the missions. I mean, yeah, there are some missions that are like, okay, this is kind of a take it or leave it kind of thing. Like I never got into the racing too much. Now I did collect the Super Spy Car, which is essentially an homage to like what 007 and Spy Hunter, where you have like the just this super experimental car that's way too fast. It's almost so fast that you can't really control it that well. Cornering around corners and stuff like that. And I very rarely drive the car. I have it just because it was a feather in my cap, and the missions to actually get the car and build it back and stuff were a lot of fun. So it didn't feel very grindy. It didn't feel like a collectathon. It was just like, oh yeah, there's this cool mission over here, and it has this really neat sub story with it and everything, and I really like it. And so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get the really cool looking car.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you are correct in what you said a second ago about not every mission, especially with the open world kind of there are some fetch questy activities in Sleeping Dogs, and I think that would be the one thing where if I had to give like a somewhat major ding against the game, that would probably be one of the main knocks on the game, one of the main negatives that I had. Like those activities where you go out and it's a lady pretending that her car is broke down, and then when you go to help her, you get jumped, they take off, you got to chase them. That they have that sort of loop on a pretty repetitive basis where you find someone, you get jumped, you were trying to help, you go and chase the person down, you get your money back, you get whatever back, and
Or you get the purse back from the mugger, or I mean, like,
exactly.
but those are like that's the thing, is those are real world things that
Right.
supposedly happen in that setting.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't blame them for doing it, especially since you've like kind of made a target of yourself in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Um, where Dog Eyes just hates your guts.
Right. And that's an element of it as well. The story ties and implications that can kind of be found throughout a lot of these little quote unquote fetch questy activities. But I think that's the thing that we're hitting on is that the gameplay is so fun that I'm just like, all right, I'll
Yeah,
go
it
off
doesn't.
and
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's so fun. It's so rewarding that you can't really ding it too much. Now, I mean, I said earlier, something about the guns not looking great. Like the machine gun with the grenade launcher and stuff, it's fully chromed out, including the handle and everything. And it's like, yeah, that feels like a little bit of an afterthought. Like they didn't do too well on like putting together the graphics for the weapons, but you use them so infrequently because it's Hong Kong, and normal people aren't supposed to have guns, and
yeah.
so it's like, I mean, like there's a few times where there's like gang wars and stuff, and you're just like shooting people that are like trying to shoot up the restaurant that you're friends with and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
chasing people and all of the different missions are just great. And then like just randomly running around beating people up, and then
Yeah.
like what was the three levels of progression, right? There's the police progression bar.
Oh, yep.
There's the face progression bar, there's the Yakuza progression bar, and actually there's the fourth one, which is just getting the Zodiac statues so that you can do melee combat better. So there's four ways of progressing through the game, and you kind of have to do a little bit of all of them.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that's always like you said, the shooting is it's good. It's fine. It's definitely not
It's
bad by
serviceable. Yeah.
yeah. But the thing that's going to separate this from every other open world crime sandbox game is that melee combat, is that third person kind of Arkham inspired combat system where you just if you look at the games that came out before this, you just did not have systems like that in place for a game world like this. And like you talked about, those chases, I can't undermine that either. That it feels very Uncharted-esque in a
Yeah,
lot of ways, where those chase sequences can become really cinematic and they have great. It ties into the story really well, and it these are moments that could be in most games just a cinematic cutscene, but you actually are participating in that moment, and I. That's something else that you don't see often at all in these big ass open world, systems based sandboxes.
yeah, you're given so much agency, even within the things that could have been easily passed off, like you said, as a cutscene, where it's like, okay, I'm chasing this guy and I've got hit X at the right time to like parkour over something or leap past something or slide under something or anything like that where you're just like you're always engaged. Um, it never feels like a passive experience to me,
Right.
and that's like just a really good thing is always that engagement.
The only thing I would say about that is that I wish you had a dedicated jump button because I do think that at times the flow of when you're holding A or X to run and then you
Mm,
have to tap it again to jump over the whatever the bar or jump onto the ledge and grab onto the ledge, like if there was a different button, a separate button, I think that could just, I don't know. There is some sort of
break
finicky.
there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just it feels a little bit finicky with the not having a separate button for the jump system. So if we were to ever see a Sleeping Dogs 2, which I don't think we will, but we'll get into that later, that would be definitely a huge addition to the moment to moment gameplay that I would like to see. I also think that the the shooting for sure it's not top class, but I think it's like we said, solid. It's
Yeah,
solid across the board, and I think the features on offer, like the Max Payne slowdown shooting, and then you're sliding across a table, taking out enemies, jumping over a balcony, slowing down, taking out a couple dudes with a headshot, and then jumping over the bar and grabbing a dude's gun in this just moment to moment, just chaotic bar fight. There's this one scene I'm thinking about specifically where the dude grabs the hostage and you pop him in the head and then you run and jump over and there's dudes taking cover at the bar and you blast. Like there's some really great missions that
yeah.
involve shooting. So I think even though the shooting itself isn't spectacular, they do a good job of shaping those missions around some cool ass set pieces.
Well, I mean, like they take a lot of time in making sure that the player feels active and you feel like a badass.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like, you go back and think of any game that makes you feel like a complete badass while you're playing it and stuff, and you have fond memories of that game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even the old Midway Spy Hunter on PlayStation 2, people are like, oh, it's just Spy Hunter. You're driving around blowing things up. Yeah, but you feel like a badass the entire time, all the way through. And Sleeping Dogs does that as well. Even with like the non top tier shooting and stuff, like you said, doing the slow mo shots and stuff. And then, like uh, one of my biggest achievements was getting through was the Golden Hatchet mission, where you go down to the docks and they give you this golden hatchet and
Oh, it's
everything,
so
and it's like
hard.
it's such a hard mission and stuff. And like I got to a point where it was like, you know what, I need to concentrate on countering more. And so
Mhm.
I would intentionally drop it and like go into, because you can't counter with a melee weapon in your hand, and they had all the poison weapons and stuff, and you get snicked once and it's like you start like hazy vision, and the second time and your health starts dropping and stuff, and you have to like get your combo bar all the way up so that you'll actually heal and stuff. And that
Yeah.
is a rough mission. It
That's
is
like
the second toughest mission set that I've done, and like uh but it was great, and I felt so good after completing that one mission. I Because it just stuck with me. I was like, I've got to do this. I don't know why it made me feel like I had to complete that mission, but after I did, I was so much better with all of the melee combat and everything that everything else felt a little bit more downhill until I hit my second roadblock.
Which one was that? Because to me, I would say that that golden hatchet was probably the toughest mission for me. Which one was the toughest for you?
I got stuck at the last section of the Zodiac tournament.
Yes, dude, we gotta talk about this. We got to talk about this. That's that's the coolest mission in the game to me. I can't believe how cool that is. And like the fact that they have this entire TV show presentation angle and it's just a side quest. That
Yeah,
side quest is so sick. But go ahead.
no, like so it like it is based on Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. You go to an island. There's some eccentric wacko that's like running this specific tournament. He's trying to get all these people killed for for people that are rich and betting on stuff. It's one of the many cultural references in the game, and they do such a good job with it that you just can't ignore something like that. And like I said, like I got stuck with it just because at the last mission, spoilers on a game released in 2012, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll timestamp it. It's good. You're
you
fine.
have to take one of the guys and throw him into the gears to keep these spikes that are lowering from the ceiling from like lowering down and killing you. And I'm not that good. I'll admit it straight up. I'm not that good. I could not throw enough people into those gears fast enough to slow it down to win the rest of the fight, and I just kept dying over and over again. But there's so many like outside references. There's references to Kato and the Green Hornet, and there's references to Jackie Chan movies. There's references to hopping vampires in the DLC. There's just this. You could tell that someone who wrote this game fell in love with the culture and fell in love with Hong Kong.
Yeah. You know, and to circle back to that mission, man, and obviously I don't want to spoil the end for you in case you ever do want to finish it, but dude, it is so cool. It kind of ends up into an Uncharted-esque chase scene, but just the scenery, the backdrop, the it is so beautiful, that final section of that mission. And dude, I failed a lot as well in that when the nails are coming down and you're trying to throw everybody into the gears to stop that ceiling from dropping, and it is a challenging ass mission. And I think that oh shit,
Uh oh.
did I not upgrade the, oh boy.
Oh
Huh.
no, we're down to 9 minutes. We'll keep going and we'll just start it again.
Yeah, I'll just, what the hell was I saying?
The nails coming down and stuff.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So the when you it's like I mean that mission is probably in 45 minutes to an hour long. Like it's a long ass mission that is once again totally skippable, which is so crazy to me because of all the, production work put into it of making it look like this TV show. And it kind of turns into a weird hallucination angle going on there. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
When
yeah. When you drink the tea, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it turns into a little bit of a hallucination trip going on, and then and then you get in that mission, you get an entirely different fighting style if you collect all the, I
Yeah,
forget that it's like these different statues. If you collect
yeah.
all of them, you get a totally new fighting style, and I think you get like a 40% increase to your melee combat. You have
Oh my
entirely new
gosh.
moves after you finish that level. You have just brand new move set that you can go out into combat with. It's crazy, dude. That one mission opens up an entirely new section of this game, and it's once again just a little
It's
side
on
quest.
yeah, it's on the disc. It's in the base version of the game, and it's not DLC. Like they could have easily monetized that whole mission as DLC.
Yeah.
Slap a $5 price tag on it and send it out the door. But they didn't. They just added it with it and just let it ride. Is just man, like, and that's a big thing with like a lot of these open world games nowadays, where it's like, yeah, you can zip through like the entire mission set and like bust the game out in like 5 to 6 hours if you want.
Yeah.
And but like I've gotten into this point where it's like I'll just wander around and it's like I might stumble across the main missions a couple of times and stuff, but I'm just like wandering around and picking up side missions and oh look, this looks like it could be fun kind of thing. And you know
Yeah.
I'm not going out of my way to find side missions, but I'm just like it's there's something to being able to play a game naturally where it's just you just kind of stumble across things.
Totally, man. And I mean, you know, I think that's probably the best way to play these style of games. Not that, I don't do the weird gatekeeper shit. Anybody can go and play however the hell they want to play. I oftentimes, if I'm not feeling the world building, if I'm not really wanting to immerse myself in everything that's going on in the open world, I'll hit straight to the main story. I do that a lot. But there are certain games where it's just so fun to get lost. I think Cyberpunk's probably
Yeah,
a perfect example of that, just because of, with Night City.
yeah,
Yeah, I get it confused. Neon City is in Starfield, and then Night City is in
yeah.
Cyberpunk. Yeah, man. Night City is just it's such an immersive backdrop, such an immersive
I,
atmosphere.
I'm still discovering new places in Night City and stuff, and like I'm at 1,600 hours on that
Jesus.
game,
Yeah, so you
and
just
like
you let that shit kind of sink. You
yeah,
you you bask in that.
yeah, definitely. Like, and here's the funny thing is, I just recently got the PS5 version of the game that has Phantom Liberty and stuff, and I have not gone to Dogtown yet.
Oh, really?
I'm getting there. I haven't gotten there yet.
Yep, I
Yeah,
got my coffee too.
yeah, yeah. Because it was just like, but like, I mean, there was all kinds of missions where it was like, wait a minute, that's another mission. I can do things this way or that way and stuff, and like
Yep.
uh, one of my friends he made a different choice when it came to Jackie's body, and he told me this whole different thing that happens if you make a certain choice with Jackie's body. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to go back and do that
Yeah.
just to experience that. And it's like it's such this like odd, seems like a small choice at the beginning of the game, and then they can hit you with it towards the end. But I'm getting off topic. Let's get back to sleeping
No,
dogs.
yeah, you're good. I do. I want because you mentioned it a second ago, and I wonder if we share similar thoughts on it. Talking about the driving, and you said you didn't really get into the races a ton, which I actually
Not
did. I finished all of the races this last time playing it, but I'm kind of with you in some sense of like driving is once again totally fine, but I don't
yeah,
there is something weird with the camera. It's a little
yeah,
stiff in my opinion.
um, yeah. Like even in some of the melee combat, like in the tournament for the Zodiac tournament and stuff, the camera would get stuck in a position, and I'd just be like, well, I'm still like whooping up on this guy. I just can't see it. But I
Right.
need to keep doing this combo so that I can actually win because this guy's like going to grab me and throw me onto the ground and like try to break my arm again.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I'm just going to keep on hitting my combo and the camera's going to fix itself. But yeah, with racing, it was like, I don't know if what I was expecting. I didn't know if it was like, am I expecting something a little bit more arcadey where it's like I can just hold down the gas and do whatever the hell I want and like e-brake around turns and stuff, or did I want something that felt a little bit more like Forza? And it was in this like odd limbo between the two where
Yeah.
it was like it was not sim racing enough to make the sim racing people happy, and it was not arcadey enough to make the arcade racing people happy.
That's a really good point because I think if you look at GTA 4 as a comparison with that is a very strict driving system in Grand Theft Auto 4. And then if you look at GTA 3 to San Andreas or even GTA 5, it's much more arcadey. But I think Rockstar did a great job of nailing down the specifics of the it's not semi, it's not full-blown Forza, motorsport,
Yeah,
obviously, but it is more semi for an open world sandbox than anything we had really seen before that. You can maybe make some arguments with Mafia 1, but I think that this is kind of it's arcadey in Sleeping Dogs, especially when you get outside of the actual like systems. If you look into the ramming and the slow down shooting as you're driving and you're popping a dude from behind and you're somehow still driving the car, hanging out the window, popping a dude, shooting the wheel, the car ends up going 100 feet in the air and exploding. It makes no sense. It is silly,
Well,
but you're
no, it's a Hong Kong action movie.
totally.
Yeah, I
But
mean, you know,
you are right in the sense of like the actual driving doesn't feel as arcadey as kind of the some of the stuff surrounding the driving, the ramming and the crazy shooting
yeah.
and the hijacking cars, jumping out of your car and
Oh
leaping
my
onto
god.
another. Like it's so fucking sick, but the actual driving itself is like it's good, it's fine, but the system surrounding the driving, the other things you can do in the car are
Are
so much
so
sicker.
yeah, so over the top with
Yeah.
everything that they do.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of I think the one thing that I would say in terms of like the moments that's really the standout thing. And we're talking about here as the slow down shooting and as you're in the car and you're seeing the enemy cars going and flying up 100 feet in the air, blowing up, and like there are just those moments that are so stand out to me. And another one for me is the mission where you're chasing this dude down. He's in a truck and they're like dispatching these different goons at you, and you're driving and you're slow-mo taking them out one by one, and then they shut down the gate. You know the one I'm talking about, and you have to make that last second split turn. You jump, you
Yeah.
take the bike, you're on the bike and you go over the ramp, you jump over the gate, and then you're just swarmed by the dudes shooting at you, but you're picking them off and there's these gasoline tankers all over the place. And then that leads you like straight into a hostage situation. But the last second shot, you line up that gasoline tanker, take out the last dude. Like it's so badass, man. It's so bad. I love that mission.
Well, like I said earlier, like anything where it's making you feel like a badass in the
Right,
game,
right.
that's you have a fond memory of that. You
Mm,
cannot that just ingrains something in you, and it's just such it just brings you so much joy in the game. And they just keep mainline feeding that to you over and over and over again throughout everything.
dude. And I mean, we I don't know how we've gone so long without talking about the environmental kills. That is badass personified, man. The mission where you're in the fish market and you're chasing down dog eyes, and there's just, I mean, loads of
Just
environmental
shove someone
kills.
into the furnace and just hold their face there.
Yeah, that
Like,
and I think that's the mission with the electric eels. That's the mission where you can hang people on the fish racks or the meat racks. There's there what else is in there? There I know there's
gruesome dismemberment. No.
I mean, but it's pretty goddamn gruesome. You can grab the enemies, you put them up on your shoulder and then flip them onto the spikes. Like there's some really
Yeah.
gruesome, visceral, gory shit going on here, which appeals to my serial killer DNA.
But here's the other thing is like they don't always take it so seriously. Like there's one mission where like one of the environmental things you can do is you can take someone and slam their head into a gong, and you
Yeah,
hear gong. like it's like okay, that's like Three Stooges slapstick style, where it's
right.
just like yeah, you took the person out, but it's you kind of chuckle a little bit after you've done it, and now you want to go do it again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they have the thing in they have the dumpsters where you're throwing people into dumpsters, and like there is a
Yep.
lot of silly stuff as well. And yeah, man, that's the environmental kills are so I mean, I'm not talking about gruesome, but the one where they have I think it's the transmission shop and you can drop the transmission down on the dude's head. Like
Yeah.
there's some super I mean, this isn't an environmental kill, but picking up the fish off the ground and slapping a dude with the fish, that kind of ties into your,
Yeah.
the silly point that you made there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I mean they go the full spectrum where it's like, oh, that was really gruesome and that's kind of awesome, or that was really funny, and like all their like it's like their entire goal was to keep that excitement level high during
Yes.
gameplay. and they do it well. They do it well.
Totally. And I think even some of the slower moments that would be in a game like this that is so breakneck, chaotic, move, move, go, go, go. Some of those slower moments you would think would be a kind of a detriment, or you would look at it in a negative light, but I don't look at it that way with the systems that are on offer with Sleeping Dogs. Like the one where you disguise yourself as a doctor and you go in and you hack the computer and you plant the bugs and you crack the safes. Like all of these little mini games are they're so well designed and function as a way to like they're fun enough to engage with, but they function as a way to slow down the plot a little bit, make you kind of separate from that bombastic gameplay that you get on just a moment to moment basis. And then so when you return back to it, it's all that much more rewarding and fun. You're like,
Like
oh shit, you're back at it.
like a palate cleanser, or just like a
Right.
little bit of a reprieve of like, okay, I've had a lot of excitement and stuff, and eventually that, that wears a little thin, so
Yes.
you have to drop it back down, and then bring it back up. So it's just like this excellent storytelling that they've done, and
And I
how
mean,
everything else is like just tied to it perfectly.
right, and you're a detective, so it's like you can't just nonstop be in humongous shootouts and all these crazy fights. Like you have to be a detective at times too. So it's cool that they have. And listen, it's not the most well fleshed out. Like you're not solving intricate crimes or anything with you don't have your board where you're going up. Okay, I think this ties to that. It's nothing like that. You just do a little quick little mini game a few times here and there, and then it bounces you right back into the chaos, which is a perfect, like you said, a perfect palate cleanser.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that I think that's really all I have to say about the gameplay. It's across the board phenomenal. Like in my opinion, it's the best gameplay in any of these open world crime sandbox games that I've ever played. Way better than any of the I love the Grand Theft Autos. Don't come at me. Probably my favorite outside of Resident Evil, probably my favorite franchise ever. But the core gameplay on offer in Sleeping Dogs, I think is my favorite of any of these style of games ever. Absolutely love it.
Yeah,
So
I'm definitely with you on that. Grand Theft Auto, again, I'm not the biggest GTA fan. I played like a couple of them and stuff, but yeah, for some reason, Sleeping Dogs spoke to me a little bit more, just because I experienced Cyberpunk beforehand, and I experienced the Batman Arkham games beforehand and stuff, and this definitely has like uh, influenced both, either by or, it's been influenced by the Arkham game, because this released after Arkham,
right, yeah, Arkham
and
was, I think,
then
yeah,
this I can definitely see where Sleeping Dogs influenced CDPR over there, and like made them pay attention to a few things for Cyberpunk. It's like you can't go through something that big of a project and ignore other people's either successes or mistakes.
for sure. Yeah, and you were speaking about it earlier, just with the world building, and I guess we can kind of transition into the story because I think the story in Sleeping Dogs is it's good. I would say like a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 level story. It's good. That is where I would say gameplay across the board. Like if you're into Arkham, if you're into Grand Theft Auto, if you're into almost anything, if you're into video games at all, you're going to enjoy Sleeping Dogs' gameplay. I just don't see how you couldn't. If you've ever picked up a controller, that game is for you in terms of the gameplay. Storytelling, that is where I will say Mafia, GTA, San Andreas, GTA 4. There are other games of this ilk that have told better stories than Sleeping Dogs, but it's it's totally serviceable. It's totally fine. Like
Oh yeah.
I mean, it in a lot of ways it reminds me of Fast and the Furious, the first Fast and Furious movie. Paul Walker going in, he's infiltrating this uh street racing organization, and then with Sleeping Dogs, you're going in and trying to infiltrate the uh
Yakuza's.
yeah, the what is it? Sun On Yi, I believe is
Son on
the
you, yeah.
yeah, the triad, whatever the
The
and
triads, yeah, the yeah,
yeah,
they're
so it's a simple setup to a story, but it's pretty solid, I would say.
I liked the story. I mean, like each person had their motivations, and each character stayed true to their motivations, which is, in my view, very good storytelling. Because very few times did someone ever do something that was so wildly out of character that it stuck out like a sore thumb. Like you got to introduced because Wei Shen knew Jackie,
Yep.
and Jackie introduces you because Dog Eyes is doing things that he shouldn't be doing and stuff, and like it like everything fits. It is a well thought out plot that just flows very well. It gives everyone their motivations that they should be pursuing, and they very rarely veer off from those motivations. Even some of the side quest people that have their motivations and stuff stay true to that.
Yeah. I think that, it's kind of cool that with Wei Shin, and pretty early on, kind of how the story is going to unfold. You can see this dilemma, this devil and angel on the shoulder scenario where it's like, okay, do I stay? And you can make the argument which one's the devil, which one's the angel, and the story does go into that of like, are the police the good guys? Is the triad the good guys? Is the Sun On Yi the good guys? And I think a cool thing is that it really doesn't it leaves that up to you to kind of determine who is on the more morally correct path, but really neither is
Yeah,
totally morally in the green. Like they're both doing fucked up shit. So it's as you're playing his way and they give you the option to go off and do, these different police missions or do some of these. It's not necessarily side quests directly revolving to the Sun On Yi, but you do help out different people throughout the side quests who are members of the Sun On Yi. And you don't necessarily feel wrong for doing either or until later in the game when it becomes a bit more abundantly
a little.
clear.
Yeah, yeah, where it's like, oh, I really shouldn't do that, but
Yeah,
they have this neat thing that I want.
right. A neat
So
gameplay tied to it.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, it's the story was. I thought the story was actually really good, especially again for like sixth generation and stuff. Although, yeah, you're right. We can start comparing it to like the Uncharted's and stuff like that, and it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't beat Uncharted. It does not beat a bunch of other games in story, but in that arena, it's punching above its weight.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. In terms of, the PS3 era open world crime sandbox games, and like you said, the generation before it, the PS2 sixth generation, like it's absolutely punching above its weight class in that department. There are very few open world games that really tell a cohesive story at all because so much of the aspect of what players want from it is this big explosive sandbox where you can kind of go anywhere, do anything. And honestly, a lot of time story gets in the way of going anywhere, doing anything. So the fact that they do tell a pretty cohesive plot from front to beginning in and of itself is surprising. And there are cool ass moments in the
Yeah,
story. Even the setup, I love the setup where you're playing as Wei Shin, obviously, and you're running from the cops in that fish market. Talking about that Uncharted-esque flow and movement, and then how that sets up the story with cutting to Wei Shin. He's talking to the feds after being caught, but it's revealed that he's working
with
with the
them.
feds
Yeah,
to get intel on the Sun On You. Like that whole initial setup is so good. And yeah, it's just a simple undercover cop story. And then
yeah,
it's fine. It's totally serviceable, in my
yeah. It,
opinion.
it it like it spins apart and shatters and then comes right back together and weaves back together and stuff. Like that's my favorite type of storytelling, and what is basically watching individuals interact with each other like strings and stuff, and then suddenly it's like you like watch the strings weave around and stuff, and then you can like pull it back, and suddenly you're like, wow, there's this really beautiful tapestry here.
Right.
And it's all made up of all of these individual choices by the individual actors within that story.
Right. And like it's a human story. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's so easy to it's not one of these things where you're going to have to begin understanding fantasy lingo, this, that, and the other, and you're struggling so hard to keep up with it. Anybody who takes in this story is going to at least understand it. I don't think everybody's going to be blown away by it. I personally wasn't blown away by the story, but you're going to be totally up to speed. There's never some reveal or plot twist that totally just I don't know what's going on. I can't keep up. Like it and you talked about it earlier. A thing that I really liked about the story is Wei Shin's his involvement or his upbringing around some of these people that does add an extra layer of stakes to it, especially with his sister and Dog Eyes'
yeah,
relationship to his sister. And he kind of views Dog Eyes as like the main reason that his sister got addicted to dope and ended up passing from it. So there's
yeah,
like immediate, real kind of animosity built in from the get go between Wei Shin and Dog Eyes. And so it sets him up as a really compelling, immediate first villain in the game.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I like as soon as it was like Dog Eyes was talking about like giving Way's sister a mouthful and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I was just like, ooh, I really don't like this guy. And it's like, wait a minute, this is very early in the game, and I am suddenly emotionally invested in this game,
Yeah.
like very quick. And then they start doing stuff like, I became attached to Jackie. I did not want bad things to happen to Jackie and
Yeah.
stuff. Like all the other Sung Yi people, I was like, they're kind of like bad people and everything. Jackie's just like a victim of his. I view Jackie as a victim of his own circumstances.
Right.
Unfortunately, like he also could have like walked away at any point in time that he wanted to, but it's like he was already in for a penny, in for a pound kind of thing. And but like yeah, like becoming becoming attached to the characters and stuff, and just like everything that they did to just draw the player into the game more and like
Yeah.
just give you that complete immersion.
Totally. And you talking about Jackie, I'm gonna go ahead and you finish the game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put up some spoiler walls here because I do want to talk about this and everything in the timestamps. Go ahead, and check the timestamps, hop back in. I think we'll actually finish up the story discussion right here, and then you can just go ahead and hop into whatever the hell the next chapter of the timestamp is gonna be. But Jackie in specific, he- you he's undersized for sure. He's not like the biggest dude in the world, especially compared to some of these big ass, Sun On Yi members that you have in the roster. But that moment where he gets captured
Yeah,
and is buried alive, and then you as Wei Shin, you go and pick him up, and you're heading back, you're on the boat heading back, and he's like Jackie's like, dude, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm totally, totally out. And then, the events where the next thing you see of Jackie, you can't find him. You're calling his phone. You're calling his phone. You're supposed to head to this meeting, and Jackie's supposed to, let the people know what happened to him. That he was captured and that he was buried alive and all this shit. And that's the next thing you see is you're calling him. He's been hung up and his intestines are like totally on full display. Just he's been totally dismembered. And Jackie passes away right before he's about to get out of this life. And it's such a damn gut punch, such a gut punch right there at the ending. And yeah, but talking about just investment, that is,
yeah,
after that, you're like, oh, you dead, motherfucker, you dead.
yeah, exactly. Like you suddenly, like you were questioning like how you were going to do things and how you're going to end things and stuff, and then that just sparks that one spark hits, and the fire of vengeance just comes up. It's like, nope,
Totally.
I'm just gonna, you know, I am grabbing machine guns. I am mowing you all down. I am like going to get a dump truck and drive it through your restaurant. I don't care. It's like you can. I went scorched earth. Like
Oh,
I was
absolutely.
just like, nope, you're all dead to me.
Yeah. And that was, that final setup in general where you're being tortured as Wei Shin after I forget the dude's name, but it's one of Big Smiley's dudes. He gets a hold of you and he's just
Yeah,
torturing you, gutting you open and shit. And then you end up getting to battle him one on one. And it's just a straight up counter based system. You're battling him. He has that big ass meat cleaver that he's hacking you with. And they do a really good job of they set you up with the villain, and then they give you some moment to kind of let that villain breathe, let the stakes of what this motherfucker is really doing and how horrific he is, how horrible he is. They set all that up, and then they give you the moment where it's like, all right, it's me and you, me and you. I love those one on. We don't need a. I don't want a bunch of dudes running around. I gotta take you out, take you out, take you out, take you out, and then get to the villain or have the villain in the mix with him. Now I want you one on one, me and you. And they do a good job of giving you that.
they
Yeah.
yeah they give you that satisfaction, but the thing is they're so good at setting up the motivation for the player,
Yeah.
and it's like, I mean, I'll be honest, they played me like a fucking violin. They
Oh,
played me
really?
like a violin because every single time it was like, we're gonna do this dastardly thing, and I was just like, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get you. And it's like, was like, ah, yeah, you played me. You played me like a violin. But,
Totally.
it was one of those things where it's like, with this game, you can either pick it apart and like stay at it and keep it at arm's length or something like that, and like just kind of like pick it apart and be all condescending with it, or you can just let go and like, I mean, I guess you could compare it to like going down a water slide. Are you going to stiff out your arms and slow yourself down going up down the whole water slide? Or are you going to tuck in and like, let the water carry you as fast as possible and have as much fun as you can in the game?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I went with. That was my choice. It was like, I'm just gonna let it wash over me. I'm gonna let it do its thing. Even though I know what it's doing, I'm
Right.
still going to allow this to happen and just have fun with it.
Totally. Yeah, it is. I make the Fast and Furious comparison earlier, but I really do think it's apt. It's in that vein. It's a big blockbuster action movie kind of feel to the story. And even just a lot of the gameplay in general feels like a big old blockbuster action movie. So yeah, I enjoy the story. I don't think it's definitely not one of my favorite stories ever, but it's a totally fine story. And when you have world class, best damn combat ever in a video game, shit, yeah, no problem with a 7 out of 10 story.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's go back to food comparisons and stuff. It's not filet mignon.
Right.
It's not. It is probably like one of the better hamburgers I've had in my life, right?
Bingo,
So
bingo.
like, it's like, you know what? Like, you can't classify this against a AAA game, unfortunately, because I think that's what Square was expecting, was some sort of like AAA result, and they didn't get it. But we'll get to that.
Well, actually, we'll go ahead and jump straight into that, just kind of looking at the successes and failures. And I will say this to your point in terms of AAA feeling games, like this feels AAA as I mean, it is AAA as hell. It was an
Yeah.
expensive development cycle, but it we'll go ahead and tie straight into that. I have this bit of information here from Timur222. Timur222, and I'll put that up on the screen so you guys can see it to cite the source here. Um, so this is the best bit of info that I found on Sleeping Dogs regarding the successes and failures. There seems to be like this internal document suggesting that Sleeping Dogs costed $30 million to develop with a 120-man team working on the project. And the biggest surprise to me from this data is that the game was actually profitable. The executive producer of Sleeping Dogs, the definitive edition, states that the game shipped on time and exceeded all sales forecasts. And then the original version that launched in 2012 sold 1.5 million copies in 2 months. So I don't know. I imagine this thing probably sold north of 5 to 7 million copies altogether. And that's not at all a flop. Even if you just take the 1.5 million that the game sold in 2 months and then times that by $60, like, you're talking about close to $100 million
Yeah.
on a budget of 30 mil. That's before the definitive edition.
Well, I mean, then we got to examine like how the game came about. Like, what was it? It was originally owned by Activision Blizzard, as a property by Activision Blizzard, and
Yep.
then because it was what you said it was the True Crime series, right?
Yeah, True Crime Streets of LA and then followed up with Streets of New York in the PS2 era.
And then it was supposed to be Streets of Hong Kong, and then weirdness happened, and money exchanged hands, and people gave up on certain properties and wanted to do different things, and we ended up with Sleeping Dogs, which I don't know. What do you think it would have done better if it still was True Crime Streets of Hong Kong and
I,
had that name and that legacy attached to it?
I don't think so actually. I don't think those games did gangbusters in sales. I could pull up that data. I'm not 100% sure on that.
See,
Um
I don't remember those games at all in my area when I was like getting stuff for PS2 and stuff. And but I mean,
I loved
back
those
then I was
games.
into the JRPGs, so but yeah, and unfortunately that like Sleeping Dogs had that stigma of like, oh, it's just a GTA ripoff.
Right. Yeah, as did
Yeah.
True Crime back in the day, but yeah, I'm trying to pull up sales data for True Crime. I'm having trouble finding anything. I can't really find anything that's talking about how much it sold for True Crime Streets of LA. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, like it was. I don't know. I always felt like Sleeping Dogs had really bad timing,
Oh,
where
absolutely.
because like what PlayStation 3 was August 14th, 2012. And let's just like list just a few of the games that were competing in 2012, competing for your wallet, right? We have Darksiders 2, Ratchet and Clank Collection, Super Mario Brothers, New Super Mario Brothers 2, Counter Strike Global Offensive, Dishonored, Mass Effect 3, Assassin's Creed 3, Max Payne 3, Halo 4, Borderlands 2. I mean, like, Diablo 3, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Forza Horizon, Far Cry 3, XCOM, the first one, the Enemy Unknown, Telltale's Walking Dead.
Yeah,
Like and what was it like? GTA came out just before
just after.
or just after this, and it was just like talk about a way to kill momentum and stuff. Where it's like I could see a bunch of people buying this game just to satisfy that GTA itch until
Yeah.
GTA came out. And then as soon as GTA came out, they probably dropped this game, unfortunately.
Well, you also got to think, how many times have you been in the situation where you're like, and this Square Enix does this to themselves at times, where they're like, okay, we got a JRPG that we it's finished. We're about to release it. Let's drop it February 14th. Okay, now we got another JRPG that's finished. When should we February 16th? That's a good enough. Square Enix does this shit all the time. It's wild. But how many times have you been in the situation where you have two JRPGs or two open world crime sandbox games and you know that okay, they just put out Sleeping Dogs, let's say I don't know the specific date, but let's say March, 2012. And then you go, okay, well, GTA 5 is coming out January 2013. I can just wait. I can just wait a few months and grab Grand Theft Auto. That's the franchise that I know. That's the franchise I grew up on. I'm sure that the Sleeping Dogs game isn't going to be better than that. So I'll just wait a few months and get my open world crime sandbox fix. As soon as you know that a Grand Theft Auto game is on the horizon, if you got a similar game to that, move, move,
Yeah,
move, move.
wait a year, please. Just wait a year. Get away from all of the legacy loyalty to that game. You got to get away from it. And they couldn't do it. Like even even with the definitive edition re-release on the PS4, October 14th, 2014. When was GTA was right before it, wasn't it? On
Yes.
PS4, and it's like, no, you can't do this. And other competitors were like Wolfenstein New Order, Alien Isolation, South Park Stick of Truth, Far Cry 4, Dragon Age Inquisition, Bayonetta
Yeah.
2, the Master Chief Collection, like
Right.
all of Halo. Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Don't compete against that. Don't compete against Dark Souls 2, the first Evil Within game.
Right.
Watch Dogs, which is
Another.
another game that's a
Yeah.
lot like it. Is like they just kept on releasing when the market was so crowded that it crowded out the ability for a new IP to compete.
Yeah. And you were talking about earlier, I did end up finding data on Streets of LA. It sold over 3 million copies, Streets of LA.
See, that
So
that's good.
yeah, that's totally fine. But I mean, and that's in the PS2 era where, I mean, games did not
Oh,
sell 3 million copies. Like that was not a regular occurrence. So I would say that's definitely a success. And but that's the crazy thing here is that this is a success as well. True crime, fucking Sleeping Dogs. I mean, for it to sell 1.5 million copies in 2 months, that is a success. And this just comes back to Square Enix being really bizarre. And of course, I do agree with you. Timing did not help the game. If it would have released in say 2015, definitely would have just it's and I don't even know so much about being in a crowded space. It's just get away from Grand Theft Auto.
yeah,
Because you're always going to be in a crowded space somewhere, but anywhere near Grand Theft Auto is suicide. And but
because you're not
still,
the water cooler game at that point.
yeah,
Everyone's talking about Grand Theft Auto. No one's talking about you,
totally.
and it's like you just got to get that timing right. But I don't know. I just someone at Square just decides now, right now, we're going to release it right now. It's like, oh my gosh, just this market is so big now that you have to be strategic with your releases.
Yeah. And to me, this feels very much like Square Enix just being weird as hell with their sales expectations again. With Tomb Raider, the reboot 2013.
Yeah,
They called that a disappointment commercially. And it's Square Enix's fifth best-selling game ever in the history of their entire company. Fifth in their entire history.
I'm wondering if they have like what time frame are they trying to set their expectations? Are they thinking back to like fourth generation where it was like on the Super Nintendo they just ruled everybody in the JRPG market and stuff, and like hardly anyone got to compete? Is that
Yeah.
what they're trying to base their current metrics on? That time is past. There
Yeah.
are companies that aren't around anymore, and many more companies that have come in to fill that power vacuum.
Yeah. I really I couldn't tell you, man. This is such a bummer to me because Square, unfortunately, they still own the IP and they killed
Wait,
the
they actually own it? I thought that was one of the things I wanted to talk about was
okay.
like who owns the IP? Because does Square Enix own it or does Embracer own it? Because
It
I've
would
heard rumor that Embracer had it.
it would have to, this is assumption. I would assume it would have to be Square because you when United Front died, I think, or when no, they didn't die, Square killed them. But whenever United Front was ceased to exist, they the only way I could see Sleeping Dogs going to Embracer would have been if United Front was in that sale. If whenever they sold Eidos and whenever they sold Crystal Dynamics, if they also sold United Front and the IP to Embracer, then I could have seen that happening. So if United Front could have just remained a damn company for a few more years, they could have went off to Embracer. But I mean, even now you look at the tragedy that is Embracer, you doubt that they would be doing
Yeah,
anything worthwhile with the IP either.
yeah. I mean, like they got forced into that very very odd spiritual successor, the Triad Wars MMO spinoff that they tried to do, and
Yeah.
it's just like we're going to take these people, this group, this team that has done nothing but single player stuff, and we're going to take that square peg and get a sledgehammer and pound it through this round hole, and like watching the splinters come off the edges and stuff. And that, I mean, that's how it feels like it went with them, where it was just like, you know, they just got slammed through into. It was almost like it was a project that it was known they would fail at.
Yeah, and I mean, it never saw the light of day. Was totally canceled before it ever even had a chance to succeed. But it wouldn't have succeeded anyway. It's not like you said. That's not what this team made an incredible open world single player action adventure narrative driven experience, and now they're going to work on an MMO where none of those things exist. And yeah, I would love to. I assume those developers are so damn talented that they're still in the industry.
Oh
We
yeah,
often see, the little studio acquisition here or publisher acquisition there, developer whatever. We need a damn IP acquisition. So
yeah,
whoever, Microsoft, Sony, whatever, go out and acquire Sleeping Dogs, and then just try to. Okay, we got some developers from United Front who are over here in Montreal. We got some developers from United Front who moved over here to Toronto. Let's wrangle all of these wrangle all of these people up and put them back to work and give them free reign to create a damn sequel to this thing. It's Man, it's so disappointing because
well,
this is so good.
see, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this video with you, is like this is a very good game. It does deserve a lot more attention that it has gotten in the past. And I'm kind of hoping that we can build this thing up to become, well, I mean, pardon the pun, a sleeper hit, where it's like where it gets this like underground support, and this cult following and stuff, kind of like certain movies and stuff started off with a cult following and then evolved further and further. Like Star Wars happened that way. Star Wars was a B movie when it came out in the theaters way back in the day, and then it just got this cult following, and now look at it. I mean, it's huge.
Totally.
So like that's what I'm kind of hoping for with Sleeping Dogs, is I'm hoping that Square is willing to try again, because right now they're like looking around, floundering around, going, well, let's just recreate something old again because we at
Yeah.
least know that works. And it's like, well, what about the things that you released, with bad timing? Why not go back and revisit those and truly examine the timing and stuff?
Well, and I mean, I've seen this resurgence for Sleeping Dogs on YouTube and stuff, and YouTube is not the end all be all metric, but I've seen people who have made videos that got millions of views talking about this is one of the, best games they've ever played and shit. And like, I don't know, there seems to be a hunger for this game. There seems to definitely be a hunger for this style of game, but unfortunately, that hunger is going to be satiated next year for a little bit when people are going to be knee deep in GTA 6 for a couple years. But hey, man, a, a rising tide raises all
It's
boats.
all ships.
Yeah, GTA 6 comes out. It reminds people, oh yeah, why did these crime sandboxes stop? So maybe Square Enix will look then and go, hey, we should get on Sleeping Dogs too. So I guess talking about I overall, to wrap up, if it was a success, failure, this or that and the other, I guess it would that's in the eye of the beholder. And seemingly to Square Enix, it was a disappointment, a financial disappointment, a commercial disappointment. But by all accounts, I think most companies would probably be happy with the success of Sleeping Dogs working on a $30 million budget and making probably $100 million, I would assume, safely. at least $100 million. So I don't know. I think that the failure of Sleeping Dogs might be a little bit overblown just by Square Enix's side of things, and the reality might suggest something else. But tying straight to that, Mondane, do you think we ever see this IP return?
Oh, um, do I think that they'll do it? I'm not sure Square is willing to do that again.
Yeah,
Um, but that's my opinion of their motivations. What do I want? I want more Sleeping Dogs. I want
of
Sleeping
course.
Dogs to I want it to have like a reputation mechanic where it acts like a balancing act between the triads and the cops, where it's like you can turn around and do a bunch of triad stuff and ignore the cops, and you get a little bit of consequences and a little heat from your cop side on things, or you do too many things for the cops and you get a little bit of heat from the triad because they start being acting a little suspicious of you and stuff. I would love just something, just give me more. Like the DLC was not enough. Give me more.
So it's crazy that you say that because I feel almost the exact same way in terms of what I would want to see it if it was revived is to play with that agency a little bit more in terms of okay, I'm gonna avoid doing the police stuff and work straight with the Sun On Yi, the triad stuff, which I guess the ending would kind of imply that we'll avoid that. But I think that bit, even if it's a totally new character, doesn't necessarily have to be Wei Shin. It doesn't even necessarily have to be set in Hong Kong, and they hint to that multiple times throughout Sleeping Dogs, talking about Wei Shin had history in America, talking about going back to America. They hint at that multiple times throughout Sleeping Dogs. So would you want to see it set again in Hong Kong? And they also talk at the very end of Sleeping Dogs, like another part of Hong Kong, going and exploring another part of Hong Kong, because they did have the green light for
Yeah,
Sleeping Dogs too. They never came out, never had the
I
chance.
don't know. um, I mean, I know that they've done a really good job with it right now and the way things are, uh, but I would be scared of like sequel syndrome and going to the well too many times in one area and like, you know, could you do this somewhere else? Like go to Australia and do it with like, the biker clubs there, or it doesn't have to be Triad. It can be any criminal organization out there, and just you're a detective being inserted. I mean, it's just the basic ABC.
Mm,
Here's your undercover detective, here's the criminal organization, and here's the backdrop setting and stuff. And like, yes, that does boil it down to be very formulaic, but a change of scenery, a change of the bad guys, can spiral out these really good social interactions, and this just these really small subtle changes that can be really good.
I think that saying that it you could make it formulaic, boil it down to something that appears formulaic on the surface. I think that if that was the perception of this game, I think that would kind of be unfair when you look at Grand Theft Auto, and it's just a change of scenery every time. Even
Yeah,
Yakuza's even worse. Nothing. It's the same scenery for most
yeah,
of those games. So it's like, and I don't mean even worse in a bad way. I'm saying in terms of changing things. If
yeah.
Sleeping Dogs had to change drastically, then those others should too. You know
Should
what I mean?
have.
That
Okay, yeah, you've got a point there. I mean, like, so yeah, yeah, maybe. Now that you brought that up, yeah, you
well,
probably could do more.
and further to that point, if you look at Yakuza, like that is kind of okay, that's our open world crime Japanese world that you're existing in. The American version of that is Grand Theft Auto. And then if you wanted to do the Chinese version of that, you could have Sleeping Dogs. Or like you said, you could expand it to different regions, continents, countries, cities,
Yeah,
whatever the hell you want to do with it. But um I guess you already hit on what you would want to see from a Sleeping Dogs 2. Is there anything else you would want to add to that other than the story changes of being able to kind of impact, have actual agency in, okay, I'm going to be more of a police officer, or I'm going to be more of a
well,
triad member, a gang member?
that's kind of borrowing the Paragon versus Renegade from Mass Effect kind of thing.
Right.
But I wanted it to have more consequences where it's like the police stopped trusting you more because they think you're in too deep
Yep.
and that you're going to flip. Um, or the triad suddenly thinks, you're acting too much like a cop.
Totally.
You're not around during the times that we get drug busted. You're not around when this happens or when that happens, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I like that balance where it's like suddenly you're at risk if you go too deep on one side or the other.
Yep.
Where you have to like, it's like, no, you got to balance this out. You're living a double life, and you have to participate in both lives like you're living a double life, and it's gonna be tough on you.
Yeah.
Um, other things, uh, I don't know, like while I can complain about like how the gunplay is not top tier, I'm still happy with it. I can
Yeah.
complain about how the racing is not top tier, but I'm still kind of happy with it. The melee combat has to stay. That
Oh,
cannot change. That's too ingrained in the DNA.
yeah. I
Um,
I wouldn't be mad if
yeah,
it was all melee. You know what I mean? Like if the whole entire game was if there was
yeah,
no guns at play at all. Like the gunplay is great. Or good, totally serviceable. And the racing is great and or the driving is fine, totally serviceable. And then all the surrounding parts are even better. But I'd be fine with a totally melee driven game. I think that adding a jump button like I talked about earlier
yeah,
and adding more environmental kills to me uh, I'm cool. Give me a slightly different setting and let's just do this again. Copy paste, do this again. New story, some slight shakeups here and there, and I'm good to go. I like pretty much everything about this game the way that it is. Of course, some touch ups never hurt anybody, but
yeah,
yeah. You wanted to discuss the DLC a little bit
yeah.
before we wrap out of this, and I'm gonna kind of just give the floor to you on this because I haven't played the what is it, the Nightmare? What is the name of it?
Nightmare Northport.
Okay, yeah, I haven't played that one. I did play the other one, but my brain is foggy on that one as well. I played that earlier in the year.
Well, like honestly, I think that the Year of the Snake uh,
You're the snake.
was the unofficial sequel to the game that was sold as DLC
Hmm.
because it's after the story. There's the Sonong Yi is gone. Well, spoilers, yikes. You know, things happen. You're back to being a police officer, and there's this new
Oh.
group of people coming in, and they're doing some pretty heinous stuff, and you've got to run around, and it's like you haven't forgot everything that you're supposed to do with 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 all of it, like with the martial arts and stuff like that. But it's like you're a police officer, so you have to quote hold back and restrict yourself from using the leg break move or the arm
Yeah.
breaking move and stuff. Like you have to act like a police officer. So it explains why you're not doing or why you're not allowed to do certain melee moves and stuff in the game. You're hitting people with the baton. You're pulling out the taser. You're pulling out the service gun and stuff. And like
And
yeah,
this is the one you're hunting down serial killers, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Right.
yeah. I think so. It's like the they're running around killing people, doing some pretty heinous stuff, and you have to beat them at their own game and like chase them down and solve all of these crimes and stuff. And it's actually really well done. And it's you know there's so many games where you get as the main character you get really really powerful, and then they don't explain why your power drops. This game and this DLC, they explain that, it's kind of, unofficially between the lines explained that, yeah, you can't do any of that Yakuza stuff anymore because you're wearing a police officer's uniform. You have to act a certain way.
That's the DLC where it starts off and there's like a bomb in the car or
Yeah,
something. You gotta drive it off the yeah, okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And it's really well done. Um, and I honestly think that it's probably the closest thing that we're going to get to a sequel right now. Um, but the other one is the comedy one, which is the Nightmare Northport. So in Chinese culture, there are things called hopping vampires, and that's what this DLC is all based around. Is that it's all of the spiritual like ghosts and hopping vampires and all of this other stuff, and they're pretty nasty. If you're not on top of your game with all of the melee stuff that you've learned, they're going to get you. And like, because they just hop around and they'll just attach to you, and that's it. Like they're like going to town having lunch, and by the time you get the first one off of you, two more are within striking distance and stuff. But it's you start off, you go to this movie about hopping vampires, and then Halloween happens, and they the hopping vampires become real, and all of these people that you defeated in the main game and killed, either by accident or on purpose or however, but they blame you for their death. They come back as ghosts, and you have to run around and defeat all of them.
That's
And
funny.
not only do they have some of their old moves, they've got new stuff stacked on top of it. And they don't play around. They bring in some other help and minions and stuff to mess you up during their fight.
Nice. I got it. I'll check that out for sure. That sounds like a romp. That sounds funny.
Yeah, and like there are some people that got caught in the crossfire on certain things, or people that just got killed off by Song Ong Yi, and like in some embarrassing way or something like that, and they're just like back for vengeance against anyone Song Ong Yi, and so like you have to go handle it because this is supposed to take place before the end of the main story and stuff. But it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of like just good comedy to it, where it's a little bit tongue in cheek and everything, but it's still a cultural reference, which this game does very well. They just always hit that cultural reference as much as they possibly can.
I remember the first one, the snake. What the my mind is going. What was it? The
Year of the Snake,
Year
yeah.
of the Snake. That one, I remember it was about an hour and 30 minutes or so, something like
Yeah.
that. Is this about the same?
This one's probably, well, depending on how good you are at the melee and stuff, probably about an hour.
Cool. Okay, so nice little 2, 3 hours there that you can spend on the both of them. Nice little supplementary piece. I'll definitely have to check out that second one, and I'll report back to you on my thoughts with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So is that all you wanted to shout out there with the DLC? Is there anything else you wanted?
Yeah, that was basically it with the DLC. I don't want to, I want to tell people that it's definitely worth your time, but I don't want to spoil too much about it. There's some things that are very on the surface and present themselves within the first 5 minutes of like this is what's going to be happening and this is what you got to do. But yeah, it's they're definitely worth playing. Like after I finished the main game, I was like, I'm not done. I need more, and
Yeah.
this is how I got more. And so I just have to wait for Square Enix to watch this video and see that two people are passionately talking about a game that for some reason they were not too passionate about, and just I mean they've tried all kinds of weird things. The MMO spinoff, the supposed rumored failed movie tie-in, other rumors like does Square Enix own it or does Embracer own it or anything like that. But like let's hear like someone who has been more passionate about this game than me. What is your plea? What's your first plea to players and stuff, to gamers out there about what this game is? And secondly, after that, what is your plea to Square Enix to see about getting more?
Okay, so you said first plea gamers. So I'm talking to the
Yeah, your
gamers
first plea
first.
is going to be the gamers.
Okay. All right. I would say this. If you have ever played any of the Arkham games, you're doing yourself a disservice to not play this game. If you have ever played any of the Grand Theft Auto games, you're doing yourself a disservice to not play this game. If you have ever picked up a damn controller and pressed a button on a damn controller You are doing yourself a disservice to not play this game. It is, from the moment you pick it up to the moment you put it down, just a constant incline of enjoyment. You're never going to get to a spot in the game. And that's another thing. Difficulty, we talked about a couple little snaggles here and there, a little difficult point here, difficult point there. It's such a seamless experience, man. If you want to avoid all the side quests that have a little difficulty added in, you're going to run through this game. It is going to be an absolute joy. You're never going to have your blood pressure rising. You're never going to have to retry a mission a million different times. The flow, the progression is so perfect. And here's another thing. This is a big selling point to people who are older. If you are, in that 25 and older crowd, and you're like, I can't play a 50-hour open world game. I got 8 jobs and 25 kids and 37 different baby mamas. I don't have the time. You got to give me something that's not that 100-hour Grand Theft Auto grind. Give me something nice and bite size. Sleeping Dogs is that. You can get through the main story if you avoid all the side content. 8 hours, you're done. It's just an incredible video game. There are very few moments of this game that are not if you could boil down fun, if you could shave off fun and put it into a bag and sell a bag of fun to somebody, this is what a bag of fun looks like.
Ooh, that analogy skated awful close to something else.
I was trying to stay in that realm, but not
not cross that line.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah,
so what? Yeah, like so. So what about Square? How do you beg at the altar of Square Enix to get them to wake up, realize that this is not nearly as bad as they thought it was?
I got you, Monday. I got you. Hey, Square, wait till 2025. Wait till 2025. And just take a look at your IP catalog and go, okay, Grand Theft Auto 6 just made $700 trillion in the first day of its launch. More money than even Jesus Christ himself has. More money than every major blockbuster film in the history of entertainment. Do we have anything that we could possibly put out there that's somewhat similar to that so we could even get a percentage of that style of money? Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to make more money than every Square Enix released game from 2024 to 1904 combined. It is a juggernaut unrivaled by anything. This is actually just a message to developers out there in general, publishers out there in general. Why did we stop making these style of games? They make a ton of cash. And sure, you can say, well, Sleeping Dogs doesn't have the online component. That's really that's the main bread and butter for Grand Theft Auto sales at this point. I hear you. I hear you. Go back and look at the PS2 era of Grand Theft Auto sales before online was even a thing that was feasible for that game world. They were still the best-selling PlayStation 2 games. It does not it does matter. The online does matter, and if you want to try to flip a online component into it, hopefully you could figure that out. I wouldn't trust you, but hopefully you could figure that out. But even just a base single player open world, and you can't look at Saints Row and go, well, Saints Row flopped. Saints Row is the reboot is a game that was made for nobody. The audience of Saints Row doesn't want a game like that where you're playing as college students who are complaining and moaning and groaning. Even though there's some things I like about that game, that's Saints Row lost all of its grit. And if you can just do what you did here with Sleeping Dogs into Sleeping Dogs 2, I think you're going to find an audience. And I think there is a resurgence of people being like, yo, this shit rules. Unfortunately, you killed the developer. So who knows? But if you want a sliver of that Grand Theft Auto money, you know what? I'd be willing to bet.
Amen.
I'd be willing to bet you this. If they put out Sleeping Dogs 2 in 2026, 2027, I'd be willing to bet you it would be in the top 10 top 7 best-selling Square Enix games of all time.
That is a bold statement. Do you think they could? Do you think they? Ooh, I've got an idea for that. If they do Sleeping Dogs 2, how about they do a PS5 only version of Sleeping Dogs 2, push as hard as they can with that game, and with it, here's a free download code for the definitive edition of the original Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah, that would be
That way
totally.
people would like not feel like they skipped out on any story or anything like that. I mean, they did it with Spider-Man, like
Yeah,
the the Miles Morales game on PS5. You got the first game with it on PS5.
I think that would be a totally fine way to do that. And I think also, you know, th- well, I do you mean PS5 only as in exclusive to PlayStation, or do you mean like
That
next gen?
generation.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say probably put it multi-platform because I think we're
Oh yeah,
seeing,
yeah.
yeah, we're seeing some of the diminishing returns begin to hit there in just in terms of exclusivity in general. But I yeah, I think that would be a fine way to get people up to speed, give them a version of the definitive edition. Or if you were to tell me, if you said, okay, you're gonna go and you pitch the idea of whatever, you get the magic wand, whatever you want greenlit is what's gonna happen. I would say just have it based on something totally different. It can still be Sleeping Dogs 2, or you can have a totally new IP, whatever, but just have it to where you don't have to play the first game, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't know, you don't need to know shit about Grand Theft Auto 3 from jumping into Vice City. There's callbacks, but the main plot's totally different. Totally different main character, totally different world.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was like trying to think of a way they could sweeten the pot a little bit, and that was the only thing. That was the first thing that actually leapt to mind was that. But yeah, it's I'm hoping. I'm hoping that that's someone somewhere out there. There's some guy that's like linked in with Square Enix, and they're seeing that like this video is doing good. There's others, other uh, you know sleeping dog videos are doing good because everyone out there is wanting to talk about Grand Theft Auto. So we're over here zigging when everyone else is zagging.
Well, and I mean, we talked about true crime earlier. We talked about Mafia. We talked about Saints Row. Like in that generation, the Grand Theft Auto clones that were coming out were successful, like major league successful. And there's no reason to believe that couldn't happen anymore. There's just it got overcrowded at a certain time when you had Narc, you had fucking not to disparage these games because Mercenaries was great, but you had so many that were popping up. Crackdown, you had Just Cause, you had Watch Dogs. There were so many of them, and now because I mean, there was at a point in time where you got maybe one or two of these a year. Now
Yeah,
you get maybe one or two of these every 4 years.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, Square, you don't have to have all of the money.
You're not gonna have Grand
Some
Theft Auto 6
some of
money.
the money is good. If you go into this planning with your expectations to be realistic and your budget to reflect how those being realistic like this and stuff, and you're just like, we want to get it out there, we want to get the name out there. The problem is that like I'm thinking one of their expectations was they were not the water cooler game. They they just didn't get talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I think some of their past successes, like the original Final Fantasy VII and stuff like that around the PlayStation 1 era, I think that
Mhm.
kind of spoiled them a little bit. They liked being the talk of the town. And lately they have been a little bit of a talk of the town. It's just not the right type of talk that they've been wanting.
Yeah.
Um, and not to really disparage Square, I love Square a lot. I miss them. I love them. I think they just need to take a step back and do some self-realization and just examine everything that's going on, realize that the world has changed and that they have to change with it.
Yeah, and I don't think Square's even in necessarily a bad place. I think they're just kind of trying to, like you said, they're finding their footing after that PS1 generation and even into the PS2 of Final Fantasy X. And I mean,
Yeah.
listen, they Square Enix has had success that is on par with any of the biggest publishers ever. You know, they're a storied publisher, and so I'm not gonna try to sit here and act like I know better than they do. That's a crazy thing for me to even attempt to do. I just would say that there is a market out there for this style of game, and I mean, even the first one sold probably 5 to 7 million copies, I would assume. So obviously, there's a market. Even your game sold well, but well, we could raise our blood pressure through the roof if we keep talking about this shit, man. Let's bring it back and let's close this thing off. This is an excellent conversation, incredibly fun. Just ranting and raving, passionately discussing Sleeping Dogs. What would you say on a scale from 1 to 10? What would you rate this game if you had to break it down? You can use decimal points. You can however you want to lay it out. What would you rate Sleeping Dogs?
Uh, um, Jeez. See, 10 is a game that's like flawless and does not need changing and all this other stuff. And usually that happens with games that are innovative and the first of their kind and stuff. So it's definitely not a 10, unfortunately. I do have a lot of love for the game. Um, and I tend to judge a game amongst its peers because how fair is it for me to judge that game versus like Cyberpunk? It's not. Like there's been so much development in the game space since then. So amongst its peers and stuff, uh 7.5 or so with a reference point of like uh Uncharted 3, which was probably my favorite, I believe, being like an 8 or an 8.5.
Wow. Okay. So I think your scale might be a little bit more
I'm a little rough.
yeah, you might be a harder teacher than I am. Your curriculum, your grading portfolio might be a little bit rougher than mine. For me, this is legitimately this for one, it's my favorite genre, open world crime sandbox games. It's my favorite genre to just engage with. I love this shit so much, since I was a kid with GTA 3 being the first one. I've played all of these games. Anytime there's a new one in this genre, like I said earlier, Narc and True Crime, like I've
Hmm.
played all of them. I shouldn't say all of them. Damn near all of them. Watch Dogs 2 is one I need to play. But um I've played a good majority of games like this. And I think that like you said, it's not revolutionary. Everything that it does great, it borrows from something else that did it great. But when you look at Arkham style combat in a game like this before this, really did not exist. When you look at the Uncharted-esque platforming and climbing and the cinematic nature of how that's presented in this open world, there's not many open world games that do that. Grand Theft Auto never takes advantage of that on this level, in my opinion. And sure, the story is not perfect, but I think when you add up all the zaniness, all the crazy car combat, the combat in the boats exploding, you're doing it, there's so much just fun nonstop chaos in this game that for me, because I would probably put Sleeping Dogs in my top, man, top 10 is so hard. I would put it in my top 15, top 20 games ever. I love this shit so much. It is a gameplay loop that I could just play for hours and hours and hours because it's just it, like I said, it's pure fun. It's
Yeah.
distilled down fun distributed to you in box form. And I would have to say lack of innovation in any one area does hold it back a little bit, but to put all of these things together, to take all of the best elements from other great games and to leave out, there's no filler. I would say a 9.3.
Okay.
Thinking 9.3 or 9.4. I guess I'll go ahead and spoil this for you. I just reviewed Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and I gave it a 9.7. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is in a different league. It is so revolutionary and innovative. And Sleeping Dogs doesn't have that, but it does take all the best parts from so many different known quantities and mesh it together in this beautiful package.
So I'm glad that you did a reference to another game to show how your scale is and stuff and how you judge things.
Yeah.
What would you rate out of 10 The Witcher 3 for other people that have not played the San Andreas game? There's been a lot of people who've played Witcher 3, so
Oh, okay. I would say, man, that's tough because these are two really different games. The Witcher 3, I would take Sleeping Dogs Combat 100 times out of 100 over The Witcher 3, but I would take The Witcher 3 story every day, all day, twice on Sunday over Sleeping Dogs. So that's The Witcher 3 might be The Last of Us, Metal Gear Solid 2, The Witcher 3. That might be my
oh,
third favorite story ever.
wow.
So, oh my God, that's so tough because I would say the combat of The Witcher 3 is just like fine to me, but it may be even less than fine to me. But the story is so good that I don't give a shit. Same thing with Dragon Age and Mass Effect 1 even. I would say The Witcher 3 a 9 point. I would put Sleeping Dogs above The Witcher 3. I'd go 9.1 for The Witcher 3.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Off the top of the head there. That's
Yeah.
not yeah. I would have to
No.
replay it to make sure, but yeah, I think I would say 9.1. So you're locking in a 7.5 to 8 range. I'm locking in a damn
Yeah.
9.3, 9.4 range. Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's Sleeping Dogs wrapped up, man. Do you have anything else you want to add in there? That's pretty much all of my thoughts
Go
boiled
play
down.
the game. Go play the
Yeah.
game. It's not hard to find. It's not expensive.
Nope.
Uh, you know, just buy the definitive edition on the PS4 and just
Yeah.
have at it, guys.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. It like you said, you can find this game for sub $20 all day, every day. So definitely go check it out. Run it. It runs fine through backwards compatibility. I did run into a couple issues weirdly
I had it
playing it.
crash once. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When I played it on my PS5, it was fine. When I played it on the Series X this time around, and I guess we should mention that we've both played the games. I played it from start to finish twice, and you jumped back into it this time before the review, so we were fresh on it. And
Yeah.
I just played through the entirety of it again, so to make sure we were fresh. Oh, I just wanted to jump in for like 10 hours, and then I was like, oh, well, shit. I I love this so much, I don't want to put it down.
Who says you have to?
But Mondane, man, go ahead and give the people a plug for your channel and we'll hop
Oh,
on out of
Lord.
here.
Well, my name is Mondane. I run a YouTube channel called Mondane Designs where I basically just try my best to help out other people that are either gamers that weren't either around or didn't have money when I had money and back, because I'm a little older and stuff. So, yeah, I want to help people with stuff on third generation and all the way up and stuff. I'm not too experienced with second generation or first generation, but you know, that's it. I want to take the fear out of collecting. I want to take the fear out of like making a mistake or doing something wrong or, I don't know what I'm doing here. Just that's it. Like I want to help you become expand your collections to not be afraid to make that next step on the next system that you want to pick up.
Yeah, and you're real intelligent with the hardware repair stuff, and you have a good tech mind. I do want to ask you before jump out of here. Have you
Yeah.
seen the dip in the retro space? That's been really fascinating to me to see that there's a lot of the prices are kind of starting to come back down, which I love.
Well, there's always been this weird, like, 15-year wave that happens where it raises up really high because if you think about it, like, teenagers and stuff, like, they're the kids that were, you know, 12 to 10 years old 15 years ago, right now, they've got good jobs with good
Right.
money. And that's going to make those prices and that wave go up. And eventually, like it does go up and it does come down again, but it settles. Unfortunately, it settles a little bit higher than before the wave.
Right.
So there's this whole like this like weird, like it looks like a sound wave essentially on a market if you looked at it at a very grand scale, where it's like it comes out and then it drops in price, and then it might drop further in price, and then it goes flat for a while, and then that 10 to 15 year mark hits, and it spikes back up because people are buying their nostalgia.
So you think that would probably be the PS3 era that's going to begin to spike here soon, since those are going to be the kids who are,
Yeah,
came up on that. Now they're graduating college and wanting to collect their nostalgia.
yeah, yeah. I think the PS3 era is going to be the next big hit. And then of course Nintendo's just weird. They
Yeah.
they have their crazed fans and stuff. I happen to be a bit of a Nintendo fan as well. So yeah, it's just watch out for that wave, guys. It's coming. Get your PS3 games now. Get on it.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's been an honor. It's been a blast. I'm
Yeah,
really, really glad we had this conversation. It was super damn fun. And I appreciate all you good people for joining us for this conversation. And I will see you good people in the future. Take it easy, guys. Goodbye.